Hello everyone and welcome to day 6 of the Wellbeing Essentials. Today we are looking at how to love yourself. Now over the past few days we've been going through some fairly deep introspection, and that process we've been through is really important for maximising your chance of achieving sustainable health and happiness. But that all said and done, your wellbeing journey is not always going to be an easy one. Okay, you are not always going to feel like you are winning the change game. You're going to make some mistakes along the way, and there are going to be some difficult days and some conflicting commitments. And when all these things go on, it's really important that you learn to apply a little bit of self-compassion. Now, what is self-compassion? Well, in a nutshell, it is being good to yourself. That is literally, it is about being a good friend to yourself. Okay? It is taking on the role of a good friend as opposed to taking on the role of a hardline boss or a schoolyard bully. Now, it's got 3 main components. The first component is self-kindness. So this is being generous to yourself. It's about being good to yourself and giving yourself a break. But there's also common humanity. Now this is realising and accepting the fact that you are not alone on your journey. Other people have been through it, other people are going through it, and there are people out there that can help you. And thirdly is the concept of mindfulness. So this is the idea of applying a non-judgmental, conscious self-awareness to the process. And that's something that we've spoken about quite a bit over the last few days. Now, to clarify, self-compassion is not about being in love with yourself. It is not about telling yourself that you can do whatever you want and there be no consequence to it. It is about being a good friend to yourself rather than beating yourself up. But why is this important? And surely it's good to give yourself a bit of a kick sometimes because it helps with motivation, it helps push you on. Well, actually, research has shown that's not the case. Studies have shown that people who regularly apply self-compassion end up experiencing greater motivation, greater productivity, and greater efficiency than those who regularly self-criticise. Basically, being good to yourself is much more beneficial than beating yourself up. Now, as an example for this, self-compassion is actually largely involved in how well you are able to recover from a bad day of eating or a bad meal of eating. One study looked to examine this by giving a group of participants donuts to eat in front of a TV programme. Now, half the group were then coached into being self-compassionate about the fact they'd eaten donuts, told not to worry about it, it's one of those things, we all do it, etc, etc. The whole group were then given a chance to eat more donuts. And lo and behold, the group that were coached into self-compassion ate less donuts than the group that hadn't been. The fact that they were told not to worry about it and told to be good to themselves actually meant they didn't enter this vicious downward spiral of self-indulgence. One that I'm sure we can all identify with. The fact is, your thoughts have a huge influence over your brain, over the rest of your brain, and over your body. And it does this in a number of different ways. There are a couple of more studies that we can discuss. One particular study looked at visualization and thinking about a strength movement, and it showed that just visualizing this one particular strength movement led to up to a 50% increase in strength. They didn't lift any weights, and yet when they came to lift weights in the actual test, they were 50% stronger just from thinking about it. That's crazy. There's another study that looked at people who regularly experienced cognitive dietary restraint, and that can be defined as people who are obsessed with body weight and who regularly look to reduce their dietary intake of food. Now, this particular study showed that people that do this on a regular basis experienced greater stress, increased cortisol levels, which is your main stress hormone, and eventually experienced weight gain. So they were thinking about losing weight, they were thinking about managing their body weight and about reducing their intake, and all that happened is that they gained weight. They had the complete opposite effect. Now, there are loads of these sorts of studies out there, and as with all science, you can't necessarily show that it applies to you, okay? It doesn't necessarily apply to you, but what they show is that your thoughts have a huge impact on your body and on your brain. And this is why it's so important to apply a self-compassion and a positive mentality and self-belief to everything that you do. And this is really important for your well-being journey. You need to create a healthy, loving, positive internal environment. Now, of course, in this crazy world of ours, it's not always possible to be positive, but this is when compassion becomes so important. Okay, on those times that you're finding it hard and it's difficult to be positive and it's difficult to keep going, you need that self-compassion there. You need to be real, be genuine in your journey, okay? Accept the fact that you're going to have some struggles. Allow yourself some self-compassion and some empathy, and in time, that positivity will come back to you. Now, if you can apply all of these different mindsets to your journey, it will allow you to develop the number one resource for overcoming your challenges, and that is the resource of resilience. Resilience develops as you deal with the outcome of your choices and behaviours, and you learn to deal with them no matter what that outcome is. Good or bad, you accept it, you deal with it, and you move on. If it's good, then great, on to the next. If it's bad, then you pick yourself up, you dust yourself down, and you go again. Okay, this resilience leads to more confidence. So resilience is your number one resource, and that leads to greater confidence, and that in turn leads to beating your challenges. Your resources and your confidence will overcome your challenges if you apply these mindsets. You need to love who you are, okay? Be real, be genuine, chase who you are and what matters to you. You need to love yourself. You need to love your behaviours and your choices. You need to love the process. You need to love the journey, and you need to trust that the results will come to you, and they will if you apply everything that we have done so far. Now, you've got one simple task to do today, because you've been pretty busy for the last few days, I know that. So today I've included a link to an article below called 40 Ways to Practice Self-Kindness. So I'd like you to read it, understand it, and if you like it, then bookmark it or print it out. And then if at any point today or in the next few days you find that you're giving yourself a bit of a hard time, then go back to it. Pick out one or two or three of these ways and apply this self-compassion and this self-kindness, because I guarantee you it will help you. Okay, it will help you on your journey, and it will help you to enjoy the process at the same time. Well done, guys. That's the end of day 6. It has been this deep and emotional ride that we've been talking around. That kind of brings us to the end of the psychological component of the course. So tomorrow we're going to move on to start discussing the more physical components. And that begins with us talking about movement, aka activity, aka exercise. Now, we're not going to be doing any, but what I'm going to do is explain how you can ensure that you fit movement, activity, exercise into your life on a regular basis, because it is so important for overall well-being. Now, any questions or reflections in the meantime, then by all means give me a shout. Otherwise, I shall see you tomorrow. Take care.